to the Renegade Yogi podcast experience. Join myself, Zorananda, and this episode's guest as we explore yoga in the modern world. Prepare yourself as we will experience yoga like never before. So welcome everybody to the Renegade Yogi podcast experience. Today I have with me a special guest, someone that I was introduced through Instagram. He saw a post of mine that I was sponsoring, and he reached out to me and he just said, everything that you're about is really what I'm aligned with. And that led me to check out his page and specifically check out a really amazing music video that he had released just recently. So we have a really exciting conversation ahead of us. And so without further ado, please welcome Zarnoosh. So welcome, dude. How you doing? How's it going?
Great, man. I just found a new base. It was a good transition. The world is burning, but I'm learning. Can't complain.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, with so much that's happening in the world, I felt that 2020 was challenging, and it provided the just like perfect pressure cooking situation to lead into just so much abundance. So what I really want to know is, what is your creation story? Like, who is Zarnoosh, and what makes you who you are in the form that you're in?
Great question. Perceptual polyphony, I think, would be a great way to summarize who and what I am. I come from an ancient people. We don't have a home. I came to a new country, a Greco-Roman system of culture and being. I come from India, growing up in India up until the age of 3 to 4. It was coming off the heels of the British regime. So multiple realities, multiple perceptions from childhood to now, conflicting ideas, conflicting viewpoints, accusations from my home life versus my public life. I am conflict in the form of a human trying to heal himself.
Wow. So with the journey that you had to go through, and the upheaval, the art that you're making, do you feel like that's a part of it, or do you feel like the art that you're creating is like a liberation from it?
I would say a coalescence of those two ways of describing it. Pieces of me use the art to heal, and pieces of me use the art to voice an opinion otherwise muted.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking a little bit before we were recording, and your upbringing was Zoroastrian, and I say was because it's something that I would say like you transitioned out of, or you still adhere adapt into your life, but not necessarily fully identify as that. So can you first just kind of explain what Zoroastrianism, because it's new to me, and I'm sure it's new to people who are listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, Zoroastrianism was essentially, arguably, the first monotheistic religion. Um, Zoroastrianism was dominant in pre-Islam Middle East. And yeah, I come from a Parsi sect of Zoroastrianism. So in the ancient times, we were persecuted by the Islamic community, which came to Iran. They started burning down our churches. So we cut. My ancestors cut. We're like, let's get out of here. We don't even want to fight. Don't want to deal with this. Let's take our secrets and roll. So we essentially went to India. I think there was a king or emperor of India at the time. And he wanted to know why he should let us come. He said, we already have a bunch of mixed cultures here. Why should we add another ingredient to this pot, change the flavor of India? And so the story goes that our representative said to the king / emperor, we will be like milk and sugar. We will mix into the culture and assimilate with the culture like you won't even know we're here. And that moved the emperor, and he allowed us to come. And we set up shop in the province of India called Gujarat. And that's where I was born. I was born in Mumbai. And sorry, that's not where I was born, but that's where my people predominantly are, as well as in Mumbai. So yeah, I was born indoctrinated through a coming of age ceremony, very similar to the Jewish faith. We have something called a navjot. So when you're a young man from the ages of 10 to 12, you have to go through this ceremony and you become part of the faith. So yeah, Zoroastrianism in a nutshell: good words, good thoughts, good deeds. That's pretty much how we live.
Yeah. Before our interview here, I was looking it up, and I saw that there are actually a few parallels to just like yogic philosophy, particularly with the idea of there being beings or entities who are responsible for creation or destruction, right? So like in yoga, you have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which I have like tattooed fully on my arm here. So I thought that was really interesting to see that, and it makes sense, like what you're saying, how through the persecution of the Zoroastrians, that they would want to go into India, and that there's this integration between the cultures. And I don't know really how far you've gone into practicing Zoroastrian. I just noticed that the key terms that I saw and just like the little research that I've done, just sparked in my mind how interesting it is that these two cultures would meet and they would have this similar philosophy, yet be so diametrically opposed, right? Where you have Zoroastrian, which is monotheistic, and then you have Hinduism, or you have like the Vedas that are polytheistic, right? And they have the whole representation of multiple gods. So I guess from when you were a child to now, how much can you say Zoroastrian is a part of your life, or possibly has some kind of influence?
I mean, vastly. So for me, I started devout. My family was devout. You don't question the status quo. You're a child. You just take what's given to you. Eventually, I broke that. I broke through the matrix, realized that why do I believe this perception that was given to me when I see all these other perceptions around me, all these other cultures, equally as valid or not? So from being pretty devout as a young one, I went pretty hard atheist, you know. I would say my teen years, I was following the Four Horsemen, you know, that Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens,
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins, and who was the fourth? Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, I discovered atheism and science, and then I grew older and I started really, man, to me, it all boils down to our point of origin in terms of perceptual existence in the material plane is an immaterial point of origin.
Mm-hmm.
The ego is immaterial. So for me, I was hard science, hard seeing is believing for a long time, you know, fuck religion, etc. But then eventually I just had this realization that it doesn't make sense for it all to be material when it starts with an immaterial perception, an immaterial perspective. What is the mind if not nothing, yet something? You can't calculate it. It's more than the brain. It's more than firing neurons. There's something else going on. So that started to elicit me to kind of seek more esoteric and spiritual paths, which led me back to Zoroastrianism and the wisdom of the Zoroastrians. For example, the three wise men were Zoroastrians. I'm not sure if you knew that.
No, I didn't. That's interesting.
Yeah, the term magi actually was a term denoted to describe us and our faith.
Oh. Yeah. You know, even in my own study and, you know, because my upbringing isn't yogic at all. You know, I'm Serbian. I grew up in a Serbian household. Both my parents left Serbia back in the 70s and made a whole new world for themselves. And I guess the interesting thing is like how your upbringing was really strict around the Zoroastrianism, where mine was pretty loose. You know, my parents were like, you know what, we're not going to be going to church, you know, every Sunday. We're not going to make you read the Bible. We're not going to make you do these things. As long as you can appreciate the teachings, as long as you can follow the guidance that we give, that we've learned about how you treat yourself, how you treat others, how giving you are. And so my kind of upbringing into yoga has been just a synchronistic thing where when I was a child, I would do weird things like weird breathing techniques just on my own. I would do yoga postures without knowing it, like full wheel and headstand and shoulder stand and stuff. And then it naturally led to this point of having the internet and looking into what the chakras are and energies and all this stuff that, you know, I let go of really being religious as a child because it wasn't really brought up to that. And I kind of went naturally into this realm of atheism because my dad really was into science and he was teaching me a lot of things. And so likewise with you, right? I just kind of, that whole idea of God or something greater than yourself or that immaterial realm and the non-physical existence just totally slipped my awareness until I reintroduced it through yoga and through really understanding what meditation can do and whatnot. So
that sounds pretty synchronous. So I think for me, my yoga would be a combination. in the sense you just described. My catalyst would be more psychedelic and musical based.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, I experimented a lot with psychedelics as a child. So
Yeah,
yeah,
me too.
I traveled deep. I traveled very deep, very young. I didn't know what I was experiencing, and I was lucky to have some like pretty great breakthroughs that I didn't really understand what they were until recent times. There was a notable LSD trip I took at the age of 16 where I met an entity, and it was a very personal story I kept to myself for a long time. But as I've grown up, I've seen many other psychonauts have had similar experiences, on mushrooms and DMT. And I started to piece it together in reverse. And I would say, I was gifted with a pretty beautiful mind, always questioning, always looking beyond the status quo. And yeah, psychedelics and mastery of an art form and the pursuit of mastery, I think, were the two things that really started to refine my chaotic view into a more narrower, like laser point of focus of, yes, there's something more to this. And yes, I can harness this.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, and it's amazing how that comes about from that chaos, right? Where the initial introduction to, especially psychedelics, where you're young and impressionable and you don't really know what you're doing, but then you're catapulted into such an immense and intense experience where that impression, or that like being impressionable, is taken advantage of, but in the best way possible. Because likewise with me, like the first time I did mushrooms was I was like 16, and I really got into doing psilocybin up until into my 20s, where was some of the first times I started experimenting with MDMA and LSD, and finally getting into the realm of DMT and eventually ayahuasca in 2019. But those first few years were really pivotal, because likewise when I was young, I was 19 years old, I had the most profound psilocybin experience and profound just experience in general, regardless of the influence of a psychedelic. Just the experience itself was just so profound and answered so many questions and showed so many different truths to what that non-physical immaterial world is. Yeah, and it's interesting how it shapes the art that we create, and now it makes sense when I kind of reflect on the video that I watched that you created. You really have those elements of it. So do you think that's what the influence was, or was it not really related to kind of like your upbringing and the psychedelic experiences that you've had?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely didn't go into that project. Um, I'd love to say that we went in there with this, brilliant plan to reference these inner pieces of myself, but really, it was more about the dynamic of there was 3 to 4 of us involved in creating that video. There was myself, there was this poor lost soul startergrade that, I was grateful to have shared some time with and to have helped him through a tough period in his life with the music. And then there was Victor Oli, who is a fantastic director, and I'm really excited to work more with him on future projects, like my upcoming debut single, which we'll be starting together shortly. So that video I think was more. I'm a big fan of improvisation. I think the magic is in the moment. I think the magic is acting without a plan. I think that's how you tap into the source without thinking about it, just being and flowing. And for me, I wanted to extrapolate that in the process. So I was pretty adamant with Stardegrade as well as Victor that I didn't want to overthink things. I wanted just a general concept and to just improvise the day. And I guess because improvisation, like I said, I believe is the magic of the moment, is eternity itself. I think these aspects of my life were bound to be reflected in the project.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because though the video is obviously put together and it's stylized in a particular way, and you may not think that there's this element of improvisation, but I think that's what makes it so magical, and that's what makes it such a powerful thing, where you see all these elements put together in a seemingly concrete way, but then to find out that there was this fluidity to it, and really there wasn't this perfectly laid out skeleton. And it's really what I think captures the beauty of it. And so I think at this point I would like to play that video and show it to people. So here it is. This is the music video by Zarnoosh and the team that he was with, called Beyonce.
See you dancing in the palm of my hands. See you dancing through the storm and in the dust again. I know you're worth it. That was all a game. We're both playing this humble pawns in this diabolical masquerade. She disappears. She knows what's coming. She's always frozen. She's always running. See her exploding in the palm of my hands. See her rising like a phoenix from the embers again and again. I know you're worth it. Though it's all a game. We're both playing masquerade.
So what is what's your kind of vision going forward? People watched this video, you know, and just to be clear, it is two different people, and there's Startigrade, and then there's Zarnoosh, who you are, and you were pretty much the kind of lead in creating it with the lyrics and the production and the editing, and now this being that you are moving forward in the vision that you have. So is there a kind of sense that you can give in the direction that you're going, and kind of what your passion is in the music that you're creating and the art that you're creating?
Absolutely. To me, the music that I'm writing now and I'm looking to create is my way of finding the philosopher's stone within myself, which I think is a coalescence of your inner self and your higher self and your material self and your societal self and every self you can think of. And I'm essentially I guess I'm just trying to set the world on fire, man. It's a tough question. I believe in the stars, I believe in space, I believe in fire, and I believe that everyone's broken. Some people don't know they're broken. And I would like to help myself and hopefully help others along the way with my words and my narrative.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into that sense of being broken, because I think that's what's evident, right? I think I'm just gonna start that again. My dog is barking.
Yeah, I know. I want to do a couple of those again too. Can I be like a little picky with the clips and stuff?
Yes, yeah, you can totally.
Okay.
I'll send you this whole thing. We can
Cool.
yeah, I'll just send it raw as it is, and yeah,
Okay,
you
cool.
can do what you want. So yeah, I want to go more into that sense of being broken, because we're seeing it in our world so clearly. And I get this idea from people of like, oh, there's so many bad things happening, the world is getting worse. And I don't agree with that, because I think the world has always been in turmoil. And what we have now is an amazing technology that basically shines a spotlight on the terrible things that happen. Where, say, if you look back like 200-300 years ago, without cameras, without video cameras, without the internet, you have a lot of people that can secretly go around and do terrible things, and that's coming out of that sense of being broken, right? And now there's this spotlight on us to really indicate the state of all of those shards and the state of what's broken. And I've felt, for me, the yoga practice that I've been doing and the meditation that I've been doing has been really helpful in either putting the pieces back together, or even just discarding what can't and accepting the part of me that may not heal, or will heal through more of the practice that I'm doing. So do you feel that where you are in your life, and possibly the practices that you have, or the art that you do, is a part of getting in touch with that sense of brokenness?
Absolutely. And you made a really great observation there about the moral gray area that people used to live in antiquity. And you know the book 1984, George Orwell.
Yeah.
So in it, Big Brother is watching. It's a dystopian society, cameras everywhere. You can't breathe without the government judging you for it. And I really, really like what you touched on with the technology, because I think that now we live in a time where we were always anticipating Big Brother, but I don't think we were ever anticipating Little Brother, right? And I feel Little Brother is watching as well. Little Brother is the people, is the guy with the cell phone watching George Floyd. That's Little Brother. The iPhones are Little Brother. And yeah, on a macroscopic level, the world absolutely is not as bad as people think. It's definitely better than it's ever been. I come from Mumbai, India, a land of extremes, extreme juxtaposition. You'll have the Taj Mahal Hotel, this gorgeous marble floored hotel. Beautiful architecture, clean, you can eat off the floor. And then just a couple kilometers away, you'll have the biggest slums in the world. And I really do think that most of the world lived like that for most of time. Most of the human world in this loop of society, rather. And yeah, I think it is better. And to sit there and say it's not better and things are getting bad really takes for granted the good people before us who had to live when it wasn't better, and they never had instant connection. So yeah, for me, absolutely, I think I run in parallel. I am a renegade myself, and when the system goes down, I go up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I truly feel. And I really do think, this is some form of, I think there's a great psychological sickness right now. I think the pressures of modern society, the 9-to-5 grind, I think there's a mental baggage that's come with it that I don't think the ancients had to deal with. I think it was pretty like, you want to kill, you want to fuck. Like, it's very different now. Now, judgment is everywhere. And I think it's time to move beyond judgment. The ancient religions of the past, it was about cycles. It wasn't about good or bad. And for me, I think we're ebbing back into a cyclical society, a cyclical way of being. So for me, I guess I want to use my art, my voice, my magic to remind people of the cyclical way of being. Things aren't that bad. They could be worse. Trust the flow. Surrender to the process. Trust your instincts. So for me, yeah, absolutely. I think extrapolating on that, my music is definitely a way for me to reflect that back into the world and contribute. Like, I want to contribute. I want to help. I want to do my piece. I want to feel like I did my piece. So yeah, absolutely. The world might be a little sick. It's not as sick as people thought, and I'm here to heal them anyways.
Yeah, because that process of healing is completely unique to each and every person, right? And the work that I do, and because I'm also a musician, I'm more on the side of instrumental, with guitar and the work with my producer John Atonic, and I am doing everything I can to blend that into the yoga teaching and philosophy and experience that I'm wanting to bring through this podcast, and also just with the small group of people that I teach. And that's the one thing that I really realized, because when I first started my yoga journey, I went into the full-on commercial realm of teaching in studios and wanting to do retreats, and the blessing of the pandemic and how all of that was taken away, it allowed me to step back and really realize what my core value is in the yogic teaching, and how even though my ability to teach in person was taken away, and I didn't get into, you know, teaching over Zoom and trying to get people to do that. I looked at how the yoga continued in my life. It was still there. The wheels were still moving. Maybe I wasn't doing my physical practice every day. Maybe I wasn't meditating every day, but it was still in my mind. It was still in my being. It was still there. And it naturally led to, well, how did the ancients do it? You know, because there's got to be a point where they had that experience too, where everything was fine until one day they weren't allowed to teach what they were teaching. You know, maybe the cycle, like you were talking about, the cycle was a downward spiral in the cycle, and the tyrants were coming into power, and they're saying, no, like, you can't teach what you're teaching, otherwise, like, we're gonna kill you. And so what it's been coming back to for me is the Upanishads. And the Upanishads simply, as you may know, like, it just means sitting at the feet of, like, the teacher or the master, right? And what's really amazing is the house that I just moved into, above the back door is this stone plaque of the Upanishads. And it just, like, totally surprised me, because I didn't expect that. And it just was a part of that synchronicity, of that serving that reminder, like, no, it's not about getting online and trying to force yourself into people, like, paying to do yoga. Be the Upanishads, right? Start with just a few people who want to learn from you, close friends or whoever, and, you know, form a small group and do something outwardly that can reflect that yoga without having to charge for it. So now it's like, I don't even want people to pay me for yoga, you know, like, I just want to do it freely. And, you know, I know when it comes to, like, music and stuff, there's all these different realms, because obviously we live in a material world with a financial system. And so it makes sense that, you know, we need to make offerings so that we can have a living for our own. And however, there's a way about it that's so much more harmonious. And I wonder if you feel the same sentiment with your music, maybe not for, like, the giving it away for free, but the sense of returning to yourself and doing it for the greater good of people, you know, where that element of Zoroastrianism is there, where it's like you're following the deity that is giving out goodness, and how the creation that you make out of that is kind of returned to the world and given out, and, you know, blessings be upon thee, sort of thing, you know, when you do it.
Wow, I mean, you touched on a lot of great stuff, but I did want to start, you know, by saying that Enlightened Dark rocks.
Yeah.
I listened to it. Really great stuff. So that was a pleasure for me to stumble upon, because you didn't really open with that when we first met. So I was like, okay, this is something. And it really spoke to me. So really beautiful work, man. That was an absolute treat to kind of just, like, find, like, a Kinder Egg surprise hidden within your soul. So really great stuff, man.
Nice.
Really
Thank you.
Beautiful work. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's another thing you touched on too. in terms of you had stopped the regimented practice of going to the schools and kind of following the path that was set out for you, but within your mind you were still advancing down the path. You were still advancing down the road, even though you weren't physically doing it. That this is like a weird immaterial hunch I've had my whole life. I started as a drummer in technical death metal bands, actually, was where I came from. So quite a shift my journey has taken me on. And I had a similar experience when I was heavy into being a drummer, not a songwriter. And that was like, I would be able to not practice my drums, but hear, an amazing, like, I don't know, back then it would have been some crazy blast beat riff, something, so Dillinger Escape Plan or something incredibly technical. And I would think about it and process it. And then and I wouldn't touch my drum kit for weeks, sometimes months. And then I'd sit down and all of a sudden my coordination's up. My grooves are better. And this was always some like weird esoteric concept I had in my mind. And a few years ago, I read about this study. Now it's been proven. I don't know the study, but I will paraphrase it. And it was something like they took a group of people and they had them write a test, and another group of people had them write a test. And then one group of people were actually practicing the source material. The other group of people weren't allowed to practice the source material, but we're supposed to think about it. And then at the end of X amount of days, they had both advanced at a pretty similar level. So really, that is something that I really love that you mentioned, because that's a really moving concept to me, that you don't actually have to do the physical action always in order to travel down the path. So
yeah, and that's something that's even showed up in my life as a guitarist, right? Where, sometimes a month goes by and I'm not even playing guitar. And then I literally wake up and the first thing I want to do is go play my guitar, and I immediately feel like I just understand it more. And then just this whole new stream of music comes out, and I'm seeing how that's shaping and how that's coming through with this podcast and the yoga that I'm doing. Was like, there's this necessary downtime, your guides or spirits or synchronicity, whatever it is, there's something in you that goes, okay, just stop for a little bit, live your life, just keep doing what you need to do to survive and grow, and we'll take care of when it's really going to come out and bud and flower. And it's not easy, for me personally, having a consistent practice has always been a struggle, where there'd be sometimes I can go like months and I'm good, and suddenly 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I'm like, I only did a practice maybe 4 times. And it was really coming to a point over the last couple of years, especially having an injury and healing from an injury, where the motivation to wake up and do the practice is really weighing on me, until really just this year, where I had the realization, like, yoga and what it is fundamentally for me is for the rest of my life. Given my tattoo, given the initiations that I've done, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I don't need to rush. I don't need to force myself like I did, because that's what brought about the injuries. And I think that's what goes into this whole sense of being broken, and that illness or that sickness, right? This need to rush through things and not really understand the whole process of growth that's taking place. And when we can actually slow down, when we can actually give ourselves the time to understand what it means to have something significant in our lives for the rest of our lives, because I'm sure that's what you feel about music too, right? When you start young and it's a choice that you made yourself, That's how you know that there's a level of commitment that supersedes everything else, right? Like, it's just like when kids are forced into violin or piano or something, and then by the time they're 18, they never want to touch a piano or violin again. But for, say, individuals like us, where we're like, we don't have anyone around us that's forcing anything, and we're just like, I need to do that. I need to do that. That is the great signifier. That's going to be there for the rest of your life. So enjoy the whole process,
Incredibly blessed we are, and the older I get, it's so rare to find people like us, and I don't think, I really wish kids could understand that, that just in going against the grain and, like you said, choosing for yourself your path, you are so lucky. You do not even know it. The uncertainty of life is brutal, and to be able to have any form of certainty in your life loop, I think, is an absolutely beautiful thing. Um, yeah, I think it's about surrender, man. I think what you're touching on, if I'm, is the essence of like hustle culture's got to go. Like it's too much, right? It's too much grinding every day. Back, like, our elders, they were proud of not getting sleep. They were proud of working themselves to death, all in the name of what? Like retirement, a couple of years at the end of the line where you can finally enjoy the fruits of your labor. And for me, it's like, we might not get to retirement, so surrender to the process. Trust yourself. If you're tired, slow down, take a break. 4 quality hours of work far supersedes 12 hours of bogged down, brainless, you have no energy work, living, loving, playing, whatever it is, whatever the action is of the day, finding yourself, peace, breathing, finding stillness in either direction of the gradient of existence. You need to pace yourself. And this is something I think a lot of people are waking up to right now. I think it's a beautiful thing. I was reading this article the other day, and they were saying how the future is going to be, 4-hour work days with 4-day work weeks. And you know what? I believe it. I believe it. I mean, we grind less hard than our ancestors did. Just to go to the toilet was a mission back in the day. You go back far enough, like every little thing we take for granted was incredibly difficult if you go back far enough. So yeah, I think it's a matter of surrendering. And to touch back a couple questions ago, you had asked me my pursuit of music. I do love to share my light. I have a lot of really great young and older artists under my belt that I am helping, and I am guiding, and I am showing them how to find their true voice, and to find the balance between replication and creation. And it's a wonderful thing, giving back while you grow yourself. Teaching is a wonderful way to learn. So yeah, man, I love the concept of surrendering to the process and open source living, right? Giving away the magic. Like, why hold on to the secrets until you die? So you have an elevated position. Isn't that counter existence? So I really do love that you made this assertion that you yourself, as one within this hierarchical, almost like Boy Scouts merit badge system of spirituality, right? Like, and I have noticed that on my own, because as like what I do consider myself to be a spiritual renegade, because it's all been very few, if any, of the people around me for most of my life could speak this language. And it wasn't until the past few years that like I've been more open with it, and I've been meeting like-minded people. And a majority, like, and the deeper I got into that world of other open-minded spiritual people, where God is an internal being, not an external being, essentially, I think is one of the delineating factors, was I absolutely noticed that on my own. And it's frustrating, because it's like, you don't get to judge my ascension based on the amount of hours you've done in this retreat or the amount of hours you've done with this teacher. It's like, I truthfully believe that the teacher within me is just as valid, and there is this spiritual superiority that comes across, and it's like, well, I've got six badges because I've traveled 10 mountains and I've starved myself, and it's just like, I don't think that's how it works. It's almost like it's become a profit game, right? So I really, really felt comforted that to hear from someone who was within that system to kind of make that call to say to me that, like, yeah, like I got kind of turned off by that, like the sharing the light without expectation, monetary expectation, or societal status, was like, that's the truest of the light, man. That's true righteousness. So I was really moved by that, so thank you for sharing that. That was really, really a reassuring perspective to hear.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And it largely comes from my teacher, Vishji, and just everything that I've explored, just through understanding cults and how there are spiritual teachers that stray in that direction of obtaining power or wanting power. And, I've had really beautiful experiences to show me that my way of connecting with people and the way of teaching yoga is how my teacher went about it, where when he was in university in Rishikesh, and he was in the Gurukul, he was told by his teachers, like, your students are your students. Like, you're not supposed to be friends with them. They're under you, right? Like, you're above them because you know the secrets, you know the teachings, you know what they don't know. And he turned to them and he said, no, like, these people are my friends, and I'm connecting to them as friends because they want to be my friend, and I can't say no to that. And so his core philosophy is that everyone he meets and everyone he teaches, even if he just meets them for a retreat or just for a training, that he says, you're all my friends, and I want you to know that. And he's grown a really beautiful gathering of Akhanda yogis, and he's initiated well over probably 50,000 people into the Akhanda yoga lineage now, and everyone really feels that. Like, I've never really seen anyone kind of like bash him or anything, because there's that purity. And so I see that, and I can't help but be encouraged to go in that direction, and in my own way, right? So I'm not gonna do what maybe other people do and dress the way that he's dressing and teach the way that he's teaching. I'm like, you know what, I grew up loving metal, I grew up loving classic rock, I grew up as a guitarist, and I love wearing band t-shirts and jeans, and that's just who I am. And I'm still going to be a hardcore yogi. I'm still going to do crazy breathing techniques and meditations and do that, and I'm going to be true to who I am as well, and how my family raised me. And that's how I want to be inspiring to other people, is that you don't have to give up who you are. Yoga is an addition to your life. It's an additive. It's what makes everything else so much better. It's what's going to make you as a guitarist or an artist that much better, because you're going to be that much more concentrated and focused on what you do. Like what Sadhguru says, like, we're how does he say it? We're like secret yogis, or we're undercover yogis, right? There's going to be people who are CEOs or athletes or whatever, that they're actually yogis, and that's really how I've gone about it. But the secret's out. I'm a yogi, and that's what I do.
Beautiful and well said, man. What a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Likewise. So I think... thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for coming on to the podcast. It was really wonderful chatting with you. Tell everyone where they can find you. I'll have links up of all the things, but like Instagram, website, wherever you find you share yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm extremely grassroots right now. So if you'd like to follow my journey, you can find me at zarnoosh.fire at Instagram. That's my Instagram handle. And it's pretty much all there. So zarnoosh.fire on Instagram, and from a seed to a tree, bless the multiverse. Thank you, Zorananda.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy.